I've often said before that I don't really like talking about current events very much on this channel. Although, once in a while, I do break down and cover such things. Very seldom, though. You know, largely, I try to ignore such things. Because a long time ago I realized that mass media is often used to terrorize people, to make them feel uneasy, to make them, you know, it's just so manipulative. And I feel like if you get caught in this cycle of constantly watching the news, you know, it's all so negative. If you get caught in this cycle, it affects you. It affects you greatly. And that you're always reacting, you know. It's always better to be proactive than reactive. And you know, if you sit online or sit in front of the television all day, consuming the news, I believe it can have a significant effect on your mental health. And sometimes on this channel I've been told that I can be a bit pessimistic sometimes, that some of the stuff that I produce is somewhat dark. And there is some truth to this. I've said before that for our people, that I am pessimistic in the short term. However, though, in the long term, I'm quite optimistic. You know, it's very easy to get depressed in these circles, I believe. Very easy. There's all these different aspects that you hear people talking about. There's a lot of young men who don't have a woman in these circles. You know, you see the encroachment of modernity on our lives. If you watch the news, like I said, I mean, it's quite easy to see that our civilization and society is certainly in a state of decline. Going back to the encroachment of modernity, you know, last night I was watching a few things about Neuralink and some of this nefarious software that these corporations and, you know, the powers that be are developing. And to me, honestly, it's quite frightening. You see the news, you see we're being flooded with migrants, refugees, all these things. And I mean, I'm not immune to the occasional feeling of despair. And of a worse feeling I think that sometimes people can experience is apathy. Whenever I feel like this, though, something that I try to do, and it may sound cliche, I absolutely have always hated the word cliche. Seems like you see a lot of hipster types say, oh, that's just so cliche. You know, it makes them sound cool because they're using, I guess, a French word, or a word that is derived from the French language. I hate the word cliche. But you know, I try to count my blessings. I try to be thankful for what I have. You know, I've always appreciated lower class people in a lot of ways, much more than some of the middle class, or especially the upper class people that I've met in my lifetime. Because working class people, they seem to be more grateful for things because they have a harder existence, a tougher existence, you know. And I'm not, I guess, you know, upper class people too, you know, some of them are grateful and perhaps genuinely good people. But you don't see it often, and something I've noticed, it seems like especially over the last 20 years, is a lot of young people, unfortunately, aren't very grateful. They don't have a sense of gratitude. And I can understand this, you know. All the reasons that I listed earlier will damage your sense of gratitude. It truly will. If you live on a screen all the time, it will affect your sense of gratitude. And gratitude, being thankful, it can help your mental health. Definitely. Like I said earlier, every now and then I can get depressed, feelings of despair. But whenever I do that, I try to count my blessings. I try to show gratitude. If you look at our people as a collective, there's a lot, we're in decline. It's quite obvious. But you have to look on a personal level and try to be thankful for what you do have. And I'm not talking about material possessions, even though due to inflation, due to the financial system, those sort of things are much harder to come by now. I'm not talking about materialistic things necessarily. You have your family, you have your mother, your father. Hopefully you do. But there are some of you that are watching this, I'm sure you don't. You have siblings. You have good friends. You know, you got to learn to try to appreciate what little you do have. And you know, we all fall into the trap sometimes, myself included, of taking things for granted. This is a bad trap to fall into. And I've experienced it before. Definitely. You know, I have a lot of things to be grateful for. You know, growing up, I made this video here, or it might be here. I'll post it here. But I showed you where I was raised, a few hours northeast of here. Little house, me and my younger brother, we slept in bunk beds. You know, my family, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. But we did have a fair amount of land. And you know, I'm grateful for the holler that I was raised in. It's a beautiful place. It's a poor place, but it's beautiful. Although modernity, the drug epidemic, the true pandemic, the drug crisis has affected my little village back home drastically. Get off me, fly. Anyways, I'll go back inside here and I'll have a little more say about this. What are you doing, Bo? That belly rubbed, huh? Alright. First off, I'm going to look at something that we all could have a sense of pride in and be grateful for on a collective basis. If you look at our people and our history, we are a people of extremes. And this is something that we can draw strength from. Quit, Bo. But it's also been used against us before. Let me elaborate. If you look at our history, our people oftentimes has came out of the wild and they have conquered. Think of the Goths. Think of, you know, going back all the way through history, when the Dorians invaded Greece, all of our history. We've came out of the wild and we have conquered. However, we are also extremely good at building these magnificent civilizations. However, me and many other people, as we have often said, civilization tends to soften us. You look at the history of Rome, history of ancient Greece, the Hellenic cultures, all through our history. It's a cyclical view of history. We are a people of extremes. One thing I am grateful for is that my ancestors that came from northern England, Scotland, and Denmark, they had great capability for kindness, but they also had a great capability for violence and destruction. You know, that's something that they try to use on us in the white guilt narrative that they try to craft for us. They try to make us feel that our ancestors were completely evil, horrible people, which they weren't. But I think it's important for us to remember that when it came down to it, as far as violence goes, nobody does it better than us. Nobody. As far as the scale, the ferocity, and the magnitude of violence, nobody does it better than us. And I'm grateful for that. You know, I'm grateful that my ancestors, I'm grateful for their kindness, but I'm also grateful for their ruthlessness. So, you know, save me the bullshit about, you know, white guilt. I'm glad that they were ruthless and cruel when the time came. Because without it, we wouldn't be here. And you know, looking back, I made this video here last year where I talked a bit about the lives of my grandparents. They were good people and I loved them, but they had their faults and they had their failings. Even with their faults and failings, I was grateful. I am grateful for that. Because through their faults and failings, they shaped my mother and father. And without those faults and failings, my mother and father wouldn't have been who they were and who they are today. Therefore, I would not be who I am today. We should be grateful in nature. Be grateful for the seasons. I've said before too that our people of Northern Europe, native Europeans, we owe the winter a tremendous debt because it shaped us. It forced us to evolve. We had to become smarter. We had to become tougher. We owe winter a huge debt. Now, of course, I'm also grateful for all of the good and typical things in my life, you know, on a personal basis. I'm not going to get into all of those, you know. Of course, I'm extremely grateful for my family, for my woman, for our acre of land here, for the land we have back home. I'm grateful for all these things, obviously. But what I'm also grateful for, too, is, you know, personal struggles. I'm grateful for the hard and bad times that I've had in my life as well. You know, I went through what, you know, if you know anything about Operation Gladio in Italy, back during the 60s, the 70s, 80s, they had the years of lead. Well, on a personal basis, I went through what I call the years of meth. And you know, I do have a sense of regret because those were years that were wasted, but I learned things from those years. You know, I found myself in a lot of messes, hairy situations, sometimes even dangerous situations. But I made it through them. You know, I'm grateful for what I learned during those years, you know. I learned skills that I don't really use now. But I have a feeling that in the future, perhaps those skills may be worth knowing. And you know, I'm even grateful to the enemies I made during those years. Because it taught me that to never make the same mistake twice. And it also taught me too that a lot of times one of the best ways to win is to just not play the game. So I'm grateful for all the struggle and the strife and the conflict. And you know, I'm grateful to every one of you for giving me a little bit of your time to hear what I say. And I'm even grateful for to the people that doesn't like me very much. I'm grateful to you guys too, because you reaffirm my belief that holding out for some sort of universal popularity is just absolute nonsense. And you also reaffirm my conviction that really in life there's only a few people that I dearly value their opinions. You know, yeah, everyone wants, you know, I want most people to think well of me, but at the end of the day, in your life, you should only be concerned with the opinions of those nearest and dearest to you. You know, if we look around, we do have lots of things to be grateful for. Some of us more so than others. But you know, counting your blessings, it helps with mental health. And it can adjust your attitude. You see, attitude, you know, mindset. We all have this native European or this Aryan mindset. And we need to rediscover how to use that. You know, your attitude. A lot of times I've often thought, you know, how you perceive a situation or an obstacle, how you perceive it is half the battle. Is there anything else? What are you digging for, Bo? What are you digging for, bub? You know, remember to count your blessings, because it does help. Let me add something too right quick. You know, our people, we are in dire straits. We're in a bad situation. And you know, like I've said, I'm all pessimistic for the short term. But I'm optimistic in the long term, being that, you know, we're going to end up a minority in our own nations. It's unfortunate. But I think as this happens, as this sort of thing happens, I think the quality of the individual will increase. It'll go up. It will have to. Because if it doesn't, we will fade away into nothing. And you know, as my friend Didymus has said, I think at some point in the future we're going to go through this great filter. You know, we should be grateful for this great filter, even though it could be very ugly, horrible, and cruel. We're going through it right now, to be honest. And I think it'll make the people, you know, the quality to rise. You know, we need quality over quantity. And you know, as things fall apart around us, you know, like I said earlier, it's easy to see that our civilization and society is in decline. You know, unfortunately, as I see it, this is necessary. We've become complacent over decades of prosperity, brainwashed after decades of media poisoning. We should look forward to this and be grateful, because out of the ashes, the overman will ascend. Thank y'all for watching. Bye-bye.